that before this is through, I will probably have offended almost everybody. And I was sorry to see Chancellor Duncan here. I'm going to have to make some changes. But let me start out with this. This is sure to offend some of you. Most of us are kind of in a quandary about the Affordable Care Act. There are 10,535 pages of this Affordable Care Act. And there's an engineer at Notre Dame that's condensed it down to 4 sentences. And they are as follows. In order to insure the uninsured, we first have to uninsure the insured. Next, we require the newly uninsured to be reinsured. Third, to reinsure the newly uninsured, they are required to pay extra charges to be reinsured. And finally, the extra charges are required so that the original insured who became uninsured and then became reinsured can pay enough extra so that the original uninsured can be insured free of charge. Okay.
That's fact.
This all started in August of 2014. I got a phone call on a Saturday night. There's a group of Phi Delta, some of you may be in the audience, that go over to Ruidoso in August, early August every year. And this call was from T.O. Clayburgh, Robert Gossett, John Scoville, and Mickey McKenzie. And they said, we've taken a vote. This was about 9 o'clock at night. You can imagine under what circumstances they took it. We've taken a vote and we've elected you to write a history of TX Epsilon. And I said, well, I'll give that a shot in my spare time. And so I got started. The first thing I did was to write all former presidents and ask each one to send me kind of the highlights of their term of office. There are 118 former presidents. I've heard back from 40, which I guess is good. Except Scoville's one of the ones I haven't heard back from. And some of these are really interesting, especially in some of the early days. There was one that sent me a complete description of everything that happened during his Hell Week. I decided to not put that in there. I got a list from General Headquarters of every award that we've ever won. I had our pledges that semester come by and make copies for me of every Phi Delta page in every yearbook from 1953 forward. And I already had considerable information about the Silver Key organization that preceded us. Some of these were very helpful, lots of information. In the more recent years, they tend not to put much information in those, so they weren't quite as helpful. I got a list of every tech student who'd ever served in the Student Government Association and went through and identified the Phi Deltas. Also had considerable information on file about various events, obviously, and I'm going to detail some of that in a minute. Obtained a list of every student government president that was a Phi Delta, and every year that we won the intramural sweepstakes award. So that's a lot of information. And the format I decided to use was to start out with the 1953-54 and list the president for each semester. List the awards we won that year from General Headquarters and from Texas Tech, and listed any member who'd been elected to any office or won any honor or any award. And I detailed information then that in many cases that presidents had sent me, and included the pertinent information from the yearbooks. What I discovered is we tended to embellish a lot of the stuff that we put in the yearbook about how great the year was, you know. Some years, obviously, are more interesting than others. Pages currently stand at 167, and there's a rough draft of this in the lodge. And I, add to it from time to time. I'm sure it's not completely all-inclusive. I'm sure there are a lot of things that people could share with me that I could put in there. There's some things they share with me that I can't put in there. But the statute of limitations has run on a lot of this stuff. So I didn't edit out a whole lot. So there's some fairly controversial stuff in here that some of the presidents have provided. What I thought I would do is just go through, obviously without detail, because that would take too long. But I thought I would highlight some of the more historic moments, I guess would be the best way to put it, that this chapter has experienced. And starting in 1954, that was before I pledged, J.C. will recall this, the Phi Delts, apparently, I think it was Dane Grant and Wally Wilson, probably, that engineered this project. They got Fats Domino to play for the dinner dance. Now, some of you younger guys may not know who Fats Domino was, but he was a legendary rock and roll performer, Afro-American, and they didn't call him Fats for nothing. Right? He performed at the dinner dance. And apparently, and this sounds like Dane Grant to me, they cut out of cardboard a fairly large Fiji pin. And at some point during the evening, they presented that to Fats and pinned it on him. Obviously, that would be real popular today, wouldn't it? They thought that was really funny. Also, in 1953-54, the Phi Delts had a whole lot to do with starting the Masked Rider tradition. Obviously, it was Joe Kirk Fulton who rode that Masked Rider in the Gator Bowl that year, but there were a lot of Phi Delts involved in it. Moody Alexander has filled me in a lot on some of the things that they did. J.C., I think, was student body president at the time. They convinced DeWitt Weaver that that would be a good thing to do. He was apparently all for it. Reg Martin provided, I think, some of the costumes that Joe Kirk wore. They borrowed the horse from a deputy sheriff's group, and you know, as the story goes, stunned the world with this Masked Rider coming out on the field. So we had a lot to do with that. We played a pretty key role in that. 1954-55, this chapter won its first Harvard Trophy. Now that is pretty significant because we were only installed in 53, spring of 53. So a year and a half later, under the tutelage of John Harding, they won a Harvard Trophy. I think that stunned practically everybody in the international organization. Then there was in 1956, I remember this well because I was a Phi Chi in the spring of 1956, and we had a bell that we brought to all athletic events. And somewhere during the course of things, the Fiji stole the bell. And actually, as a pledge, we were glad they stole it. Because that meant we didn't have to, you know, we were responsible for tightening it out and ringing it and everything. We didn't have to do that anymore. But there was a big search on, and an active named Lynn Elliott apparently located where the Fiji owl was. And apparently it was at an apartment. And I don't know whether the Fiji was married or whether it was just living with this girl or what. It probably was the 50s, so he's probably married to her. And he put on a Fiji jersey and a Fiji cap and knocked on the door and told this young lady he needed the owl for a special meeting they were having that night. She gave him the owl, marched right out with it. There's a picture. Now, I've had this picture for a long time, and people have sent it to me as well. There's a picture of my pledge trainer, John Roberts, pointing to that owl, and I'm a Phi Chi, and I have a shotgun pointed right at it. And all the members throughout the week would come into the sub with a feather pinned on there. So finally, I think we gave the owl back to them. They never gave the bell back. Now we, I think, discovered that they took it to Canadian, where the Abrahams reside, and stored it up there. And that's going to resurface here in a few minutes. But that was a pretty traumatic situation to go through, and on part of both sides. There was some I guess there was some bitterness over all that. Rayford Steinbach, who was a Fiji president, told Larry Bird, said, "Why don't we just get out in Broadway and fight, and the winner gets the bell back?" Prophecy. In 1973, we occupied our first permanent lodge on Greek Circle, and we were the first to do that. simply, I think, because we were better prepared and ready to do it when the time came. Obviously, the sororities were way ahead of us. That lodge was built by a builder named Ken Flagg. In 1978 and 79, Fred Bryant had taken over as chapter advisor, and he started, or helped start, the Phi Delta Rodeo, which later became the Phi Delta KA Calf Ride. And an interesting story about that calf ride, Andy Barron was the president of Kappa Alpha, and he came to one of our chapter meetings and proposed the two organizations come together and do this. There's a lot of bad blood at the time between the KAs and Phi Deltas, and I think he was sensing that. He was trying to do something to try and you know, cement that relationship a little bit better, and he did. It worked. Of course, we still have the KA, Phi Delta Calf Ride, and I think maybe, I don't know how the situation is today, but I know in the years following that, the two organizations became pretty close, and a lot of the animosity and a lot of the bitterness kind of faded, which, you know, there's a message in that, I guess. August the 4th, 1986 was not a happy moment for our chapter. That's when John Harding passed away. And a lot of you guys in here did not know John Harding. You know, he was a father figure to me, and I'm sure to a lot of the guys in here. He was a remarkable guy. I'll tell you one story. This is not a mixed audience. No, okay. John Scoville tells this story about Mr. Harding. That, you know, he had this Cadillac, and he would round up members and go out to his ranch, and they would rustle cattle in the damn Cadillac. You know, it was craziness. Anyway, John was in the car with Mr. Harding, and they pulled up to Larimore service station down here on 19th. Some of you will remember that. And there was a car right in front of them that was just packed with kids and girls and guys, little young ones, you know. And the driver of the car got out to fill up his car with gasoline. Mr. Harding said to Scoville, he said, "That guy right there has just about fucked himself out of a seat in that car."